Mark. Yes, we're here right now. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. He's on his way.
Okay, good afternoon. We're going to call the meeting to order at 1:01 p.m. This is the meeting of the Historic Review Commission for the City of Erie for our Monday, March 6th meeting at 1 p.m. We'll start with a call to order. Craig Pepper? Absent. Dave Brennan?
Here.
Mark Tannenbaum? Presently absent, but he may be joining us.
Correct. Presently absent.
Melinda Meyer here. Jeff Salonis.
I'm here.
Jason Wazorek.
Here.
And Chris Kinder. And Chris, we actually do see you on Zoom, even though we haven't been able to hear you. So we're marking you present.
See it blurred. Okay.
So I think we probably need to skip number 2.
Yes.
Is everyone in agreement with that? So the first item on the agenda is the roll call. The second item on the agenda is the approval of the January 6th meeting minutes. Those have not yet been received. So we're going to table item number 2. We're going to move on to number 3, old business, and we have an update on the historic preservation plan. Chris, are you able to provide an update?
Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Okay, so we have a mic on. Chris, are you okay if I just quickly talk about what I'm familiar with the Historic Preservation Plan? Okay, thank you. So with the Historic Preservation Plan, we currently have the public survey out and open. We are asking members of the public to participate, organizations, city staff, anyone who would have input that they would wish to provide to the City of Erie Historic Preservation Plan, we would ask them to go ahead and complete that survey. So the survey itself is actually found on the City Historic Preservation Plan, and I can't remember. Use your thumbs up or thumbs down again, Chris. Is it eriehistoricpreservationplan.org?
I think it's eriepreservationplan.org.
eriepreservationplan.org. Okay. There are also opportunities to see the link, eriepreservationplan.org. Thank you, Chris. There are also opportunities to find the link to the survey on both the city's Facebook page as well as the City of Erie Historic Review Commission Facebook page, as well as I know the neighborhood groups and several others have also shared the link to the survey. So moving on then to the next item on the agenda, we have the update on the mayor building designation. So last Wednesday, Erie City Council voted to approve the change to the zoning ordinance, which would designate the mayor building and/or the PACA building as the city's first locally designated historic building. The city held a press conference on Friday at the mayor building, and Mark Tannenbaum gave a tour of PACA to those who were in attendance. So it went incredibly well. So moving on then to the review of the historic building improvement grant applications, we're going to take a moment here just to kind of share with those of you who have attended and are representing applications that we had both some technical and some health issues last week, which have created some hiccups for us. So the technical issues, the application packets actually did not reach the Historic Review Commission members until today. we have Chris Kinder, who's the Historic Preservation Planner for the city, who's helping to organize the applications and make sure that they get to the Historic Review Commission members. He was out last week with COVID. So we've got a number of problems that have occurred. So we're just going to be honest with you that most likely we will not vote on these applications today because we haven't actually read the applications. And we apologize for any inconvenience this may cause for your projects. The next Historic Review Commission meeting is going to be the first Monday in April at 1 o'clock. And we certainly will be prepared to vote on applications at that point. But since you are in attendance today, we'd love to give you an opportunity to step up to the microphone, tell us a little bit about your project, the scope of work you plan on doing, whether this is your own residential property or if this is a commercial property. Please, if you're comfortable, we'd love to hear a little bit about your project. Just know, again, that we haven't yet read applications. Would either of you like to share about your projects?
Good afternoon. Probably don't need that. I'm John Noel at St. Stan's, Father Jason, pastor, and we put in for $5,000 to have the church bells working again. Church bells haven't worked in about 20 years, and we think it's time that we get them going again. Kind of brings life to the neighborhood, tells the neighborhood that we're open for business. Come on down, come to the church, and it's been going on for so long. Okay, that now we want them to go again. We have given you an estimate for $15,000 in the packet. We're only asking for $5,000 because our parishioners from all around the country through Facebook and everybody else, we've already reached our $10,000 goal. So we've got some skin into this thing ourselves. We're not asking just for a complete handout. We need just that little bit to get us over the hump because we'd actually like to get these bells ringing on Easter Sunday. Mm-hmm. The building itself, the church, was started in 1887. We're the second oldest Catholic church in Erie. St. Pat's is the oldest, because it used to be the cathedral. So they are probably 20 years older than us, but we are the second oldest Catholic church in Erie. And we are alive and well. We just would like the bells to ring in the neighborhood again. Do you have anything, Father?
I would say this is just one project in the midst of many others we've been doing to try to restore the property. So there's been a lot of other projects we've undertaken. This is just one of many. But
I mean, this past summer we had to put in a new boiler system. That was $40,000. We had to put a new roof on the old St. Stan's school. That was $50,000. So that we've all got covered and paid for. We're just a little bit light on the bells. But besides that, that's it. Thank you very much for your opportunity.
I saw a lot of activity at the old school. You were using that for like education for like immigrants coming to the city.
Right, Catholic Charities Refugee Program is housed in our school now.
Okay.
They used to have an office on West 10th, and they're centralizing everything now at our place.
So that's the investment. I seen like new electrical service going up.
Yep, yeah, we did all the rewiring, repainted the entire building. A lot of good stuff happening.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah.
I just looked at the application a little bit ago, but the bell's already there, but just the mechanism for ringing, is that what's being replaced?
Yes.
So it's fully functional?
The knockers on the bell. What we're going with is the bells aren't going to swing anymore.
The A-frame is just too
Yeah,
deteriorated from the swing.
it knocks
It's just
into
going
it.
to be knockers.
Yeah.
And the guy that's going to install them said the knockers will be loud enough, will be heard all over the whole city again. Mm-hmm. So we'll have our bells fixed.
Do we have Any other questions? We'll give Mark a chance to catch up and just,
I'm late and I apologize. My bad.
That's all right.
That being said, it sounds so intriguing. What are we doing?
Well, what we're doing is we're restoring the bells at St. Stan's.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
They haven't rang in about 20 years.
No, I get it, yeah.
You know, so now we want to get them ringing. We want to bring life back to the neighborhood.
Okay.
We want everybody to know that St. Stan's is open and alive, and want people to come.
Sure.
So, and our enrollment is slowly going back up.
Great.
And it's just, the estimate that we gave that's in your packet was for 15,000. The parishioners throughout the whole country, world, have already donated up to 10,000.
That's great.
So we're not looking for a complete handout, we just need a little extra to
Matching
help us.
funds.
We've even gotten checks as far as London, England, through Facebook for the bells.
the beauty of social media. Yeah.
So we're really trying.
So did you do a GoFundMe? Is that how you did it?
No, we did
just
through
mailed them?
Facebook posts. St. Stan's Alumni Group, the church Facebook post, just through our parishioners in the city, and, word of mouth, and, everybody wants the bells to ring again.
I do.
Good. Yeah, you're right down the street, you'll hear 'em.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I said, we're the second oldest Catholic church in Erie. 1887, we were started.
Mm-hmm.
And St. Pat's is the oldest, but
Yes.
we're the second oldest building, Catholic building. So, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Sorry
Oh,
for
no
that
problem.
meeting to
Yeah.
catch up.
All right, hope to hear from you.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Wow. That's-
Would you also like to speak?
Hi, my name's Nick Ferguson. I live at 537 West 8th Street. We know each other.
Yep.
Basically, I bought the house. I wish my application was half as compelling as these gentlemen's, but unfortunately it is not. This is my house, and we bought it as a fixer-upper about six years ago.
Where is it again? I'm so sorry.
It is, the property's 537 West 8th Street.
Okay. Oh, great. I know where that is.
So, there's the Anastasia Mansion.
Yes.
There's one in between, and then there's my
Next
house.
one over. Right.
And the houses on that street are old. I thought maybe this would go.
There's a construction truck in the driveway right now.
Yeah, that's my truck.
I was just there. Yeah.
No, actually, the truck's right.
All right.
So the advertisement works.
Right. People, they see it. Anyways, the inside is just about done. The backyard is just about done. But one of the largest and most tedious parts of the project is the paint. You know what I mean? And that's what I applied for the grant for, was to come in and paint the outside of the house. It is tall and it does require equipment. You know what I mean? So and not only that, but it's cedar. Now, they don't even really install cedar clapboard anymore. And it lasts forever and it doesn't rot, but it just hates paint. You know what I mean? You can do the nicest paint job. You can scrape it and pressure wash it and scratch down every spot and prime it with an oil-based product, and you'll still be touching it up every year. Well, this is to the point where it needs painted. You know what I mean? There's a lot of flake and a lot of other things. So I came down and I was like, well, I'll check this grant out, and if it seems legit, I would encourage some of my patrons to apply for it as well. We get a lot of requests for bids in the downtown area, and the houses are old and they're tough to work on. You know what I mean? So you break a contractor's cost down, it's all material and labor. Well, the labor's higher on the older homes just because there's more to deal with. Things are more ornate. You know what I mean? So
Scaffolding.
a lot of people can't. They're like, well, it's just not. It's not worth putting into this property. You know what I mean? Well, with a grant like this, it'll help people kind of bridge that gap.
Sure.
And you live in the house,
Yes.
Nick? Yeah.
Yes, sir. I do. I was actually in the process of trying to buy the one next door. It's a rental property and it's pretty tore up, and I'd like to fix that up as well. Can a person apply twice or not?
Yes.
You can?
You have to complete the first grant,
Sure.
and then you can apply.
And then reapply for the
Right,
second.
You can go for two.
Okay.
And the chiropractor doesn't want to sell the house?
No.
The guy.
No, he
Oh,
wants
somebody's
200 grand.
interested. Nick, are you doing the work yourself, or do you have a painting contractor that's doing it?
No, we would do it. Solid state construction.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I would run it through the company, and that's why I could do it. Basically, if I put it through the company and do it for $15,000, it's going to be done at cost. It's all going to go out in labor, material, and equipment rental. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be any profit to the company, but I get my house painted. So we're not too bad at it. We're good painters. We take care of it. And it is. It's ornate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's got
I
the
do.
columns in that front window. To be honest, that front window needs replaced. But paint this year, maybe windows next year. You know what I mean? But it's got the ornate columns. The porch is done. We've put a lot into the building. We bought it. It was an abandoned auction property that PFHA owned. And it went to auction in 17, and we got it. But it was an extreme fixer-upper. But it fits with my skill set. You know what I mean? So like that was my house, and I just chipped at it. One day, one year I did the bathroom and the kitchen and the other bathroom and the floors and the paint on the inside and everything else. We preserved as much of it historically as we could. We actually had to fix one of the pocket doors, and we tore it all apart. And it was cool because it's got like big cast iron hardware. And you can see like the date stamp was like 1892 that this hardware was forged on these doors. And I was like, I wish they'd make building products that last that long now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't make them like they used to. You know what I mean? It was just a lever and a big iron wheel that swings this door into the wall. It had all come off the track, and then there was a set screw. And the set screw was backed all the way out, so you couldn't get it back on. So you had to take it all apart, you know what I mean, rip the trim off the door and put it all back into. Really, really cool homes downtown Erie. Always wanted to own a Victorian, and now I do. And so it's been a little bit of a dream come true. And they're big and they're really nice, and they just, I mean, like, you think about all the people that lived and died in that property, the people that were born there. You know what I mean? It's 120 years old. How many generations have gone through there? Like 7. So, I don't know. Do you guys have any questions for me?
No.
I know right where you are. That's great.
I know right where you are.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Do you remember a girl named Elvis?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I just talked to her.
security for her at a couple of those shows that they did in your building over there. It's always a good time.
She's coming in for Passover.
Is she really?
Yeah.
I should probably visit.
I'll let her know you asked about her.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much, and
Okay. All right.
hopefully all is well. And I will, if it's okay, I'll encourage some of my patrons to apply for this grant as well.
Please do. We are still actively taking applications.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks,
Have
thanks,
a
Nick.
wonderful day.
Okay.
We'll see you.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that applicant B is not here, but we do indeed have applicant C. Mr. Tannenbaum, would you like to tell us a little bit about your project?
The front door project. It's moving right along. I would probably like to do another grant, but I know this was a matching grant, so we sent the money in. Is that correct? But this was the matching grant that we sent?
It's a reimbursement
The
grant.
reimbursement
Yes.
grant, right.
Correct.
So we already we already gave the reimbursement. The next phase would be for us to give the down payment for the electronic hardware part of it. Right now, we just bought the doors and the hinges, but not any of the hardware that goes with the door. So that actually has to match and mesh together. They have to work together. But we just got the estimate for that, and I have not given them a down payment on that. So I would do that again. But yeah, we're in the queue to get it done this summer.
So your plan is to put the door leaves on and just like with plain panic hardware and then go back and retrofit?
No, I'm going to do it all at once. I'm going to pay him up front so that when it's all done, it's done the same weekend. I mean, the whole thing will take less than a week to do the entire thing.
Okay.
But I just don't, it's a complicated door lock, and I haven't made up my mind yet. I just don't know what the right one is. And once I buy it, I'm married to that for a while, so I just want to make the right decision first off. And the other thing, I don't know if you saw on is that we're doing the floors in our main building, the 5,600 square feet on the first floor, and we're getting an estimate for that. But that we're paving we're clearing it's a floor like this, so it's a terrazzo floor, not in pieces like this, but the whole thing board. And it's been horrendous for the last 50 years, and we had advanced flooring come in and polish a part of it. And we have a tenant now who wants to move into that space, and we said we do the doors, floors. But that's restoring that property back to its glory in 18 and inner, so we'll be back.
But to be specific, this is the front.
Doors.
This application is specific to the front doors.
Yes, and we already did pay the money down
To
to the door
supplier.
people. Right, now that's just half price too. So we gave them 50%.
Mark, did Steve do a drawing? I know they were going to try to, I believe, align with your existing door design.
Yes.
I mean, are they providing a sketch or something like that kind of would show what it would look like?
They did not.
Okay.
Probably a good idea, so when they show up,
So
you
maybe
don't
if it's
say
even a
it doesn't-
picture,
Yeah.
it says that we're going to kind of make it look like this or
That's
just
fine.
something.
He did talk about the trim, you know, that little spoon edge trim that's around the outside. All the
Yeah.
panels that exist today will be exactly the panels, and then they'll have the same spoon edge trim that's on the inside spoon edge.
Is there,
the
we can take a
inside-
picture of that door, maybe then add it to this application?
I can-
Just
I
so
can
we
take a
know that there's a
photograph of it, yeah.
design basis for it. Otherwise, I know Steve does a great job, but I know you're looking to do the best thing, but it would show us what's going to happen.
He told me that it would be an exact match of the blonde oak, golden oak that's there today, that's in the foyer. So he's taking that exact thing, and he's taking the entire piece out, both the little side windows, there's a name for those, but those little side windows, and all of that comes completely out. Everything else gets put back in, installed in one day.
In the same location, I know
Same
it was
exact
out,
location.
it was out flush with the wall, now, but it's going to stay in the same location.
I think it was unsafe to put a door that opened out onto the sidewalk.
Yeah, the recess makes more sense.
It just made more sense, and then we have that overhang that lights us a little bit, gets us out of the rain a little bit. I prefer it. I have walked out that door and have people whiz by me on a bike, and if I know that if I had opened that door, I'd have been hit. So I just don't want to do it. But I'll get Steve to provide that, and that's not a problem. I mean, he's done work for me in the past. Like he did that bent window, like when we found that
sure.
big, huge leaded glass window, he bent the frame for that and built a 20-foot mahogany frame. So I think I just trusted him.
Yeah, I could definitely vouch for Shooty. They've done some great work
Oh, he's
in the past.
He's one of two people that I would have gone to in Erie County to get this job done. And in fact, he said had we not been a customer for him in the past, he probably wouldn't have had the time to do it. He's just so backed up. Everybody is just so, anybody that does great work is backed up. So I think PACA asked for $10,000 for that reimbursement. We'll have another, the whole thing's gonna be 30. The doors and hardware will be 30 by the time we're done with it. But we'll do it in pieces. I didn't want to overwhelm the system.
Do we have any further questions for Mark about the project, other than the request for a photograph?
Right.
Or
No.
a drawing or
or
photograph, something? Okay, so then we know we have, and again, we did not hear from our fourth applicant. I don't want to make any assumptions. Do all of us wish to table this for our April meeting? An actual vote?
Yes.
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 Excellent. Okay, so I'll put forth a motion to table the vote on these four applications to our April meeting,
I'll second it.
seconded by Jeff. Any further discussion?
Can I ask a question about this one? I know they're not here. Is it too late to ask a question about it?
It isn't, but I don't know that we have an answer.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just saying, I don't know if we can communicate with them before the next meeting to get information, but it says new roof, but is there any type of picture? I see interior photos of where the roof's leaking, but is this the entire roof? Is it a portion of the roof? I mean, I know the building, and I don't know if it was a whole roof placement or not.
So it sounds as if there may need to be additional questions answered.
I mean, just a confirmation of the extent.
Also about the electrical service, right, that he's talking about, $15,000, but it's the roof and the electrical service, which I don't think the grant extends to electrical.
So I think that questions should be emailed collectively to the Historic Review Commission. Let's continue to have questions addressed or asked and addressed perhaps via email between now and April.
So you want us to email you with the questions and then you'll go back to the owner?
I actually think we should all be sharing our questions with one another
Okay.
and include Chris, because I think ultimately Chris will be responsible for going back to the property owner and seeking out, and or RACE, right, the Redevelopment Authority of the
Right.
City of Erie. Either Chris or the program officer at the Redevelopment Authority will ultimately need to reach out to the applicant to provide the answers to the questions and or the additional information that we need.
All right, so we submit our questions to
Chris.
To Chris.
But I would say to make sure that you CC every HRC member. That way we can see what each and every one of us is questioning and or asking for.
Okay.
So I have a general question. Is that okay? Or should we vote?
Yeah,
vote?
yeah.
Or we're kind of open?
Well,
Let's vote. and then-
if it's part of the discussion, I would say to go ahead, but if it's
these
not
are-
related to the vote.
Because these are all reimbursement grants, and again, we tried to figure this all out, like, so, because here's a gentleman that's going to do the work themselves, but he's a professional company, so he's going to do it, and we're going to pay him. Like, for me, or for PACA, we're going to hire Shooty. There's certainly an arm's length transaction in that, because the money doesn't come to PACA per se. We're being reimbursed for a check we've already written, which I showed a receipt for. This is a little bit different in the sense that he's doing the work himself, even if it's his company. Does his private person write a check to his company and then we reimburse the person? I'm just asking
You're saying
procedurally.
he personally benefits from the grant.
It's different than
Well, the grant says that sweat equity or your own labor
Okay.
is not reimbursable, but in this case, it's his company. And it's a
yes,
good
and I think
question,
he's right
because
that
was
it would
the-
be
that was something I
labor
noticed there.
and material.
Yes.
I think he's accurate in that because like I tell you, I just happened to be in the neighborhood. I just happened to look at his house. It wasn't like I was checking it out for this.
Right.
That's a gray space that I don't think that we discussed. That the owner of the building is a contractor and doing the work themselves, and how do you fairly reimburse them?
And are we setting a precedent going forward?
And are we setting a precedent going forward? Exactly, because these first few that we do are going to be like George Washington. Whatever happened to the first president is that's how we do things still. And this is the precedent that we're setting. And I just want to make sure that we're going with our eyes open. And the other one is like even with the roof and the electrical, they haven't. Am I correct by saying that Mr. Pence hasn't done the work yet?
But that's not required.
But we would have to reimburse him.
Yes.
So he would have had to spend the money.
The grant says you can't have started the work. You can't apply retroactively
I see.
after you've started the project.
Right.
I see. So,
Right.
but he would still have to have a deposit to the contractor to get the work done and show us the check. Do you know what I'm saying? Again, how do you know that?
I would wait. If we approve the grant, then I go out and start spending money.
So I
Right.
think the piece that you're missing, though, is the process that the Redevelopment Authority has in place.
Okay,
So our role in this is to simply approve or disapprove.
I see.
The process to seek
process.
reimbursement is actually managed by the Redevelopment Authority.
I see. Okay. Because the question would ultimately be that you end up giving somebody money and they don't do the work.
Right,
And there's
so,
no process for us to actually go see it being, that it's done.
Well,
And then
there
what are you
is.
going to do?
They have
Yeah.
to show proof of it.
Right.
They have to
Right.
show proof with their.
Because then you have to ask for the
to get
money back.
reimbursed. To
Correct.
get reimbursed.
I just think we just need to protect the funds, just in a process that's legit.
yes, so there is actually there is a process that the
Okay,
Redevelopment
fine.
Authority has established where applicants, yes, have to show evidence of reimbursement. Depending on the Redevelopment Authority's process, they may also send out a staff member to actually in person inspect the work.
Okay. Yes, because I would think that would be necessary. Because even with Nick's paint on 8th Street, to make sure that it's done all the way around the house and not just the front, how would you even know how much? something happened.
So let's go ahead, let's go back to our vote. So we have a motion, we have a second, and the vote, the motion is to table the vote on these 4 applications until our April meeting. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fantastic. So these 4 applications need to be included on our agenda for the April meeting. I would also think that it might be in our best interest to set a deadline for ourselves for when we want our questions submitted to Chris, so that he has time to reach out to the property owner, solicit the answers and or additional information, and give that back to us prior to our April meeting. So what do we think?
Let's make it a week from today.
Well, they may have to
Perfect.
revise the application.
They may have to revise the application. But I think that we want to make sure that there's enough time between now and our April meeting for them to do that. So Jeff's suggestion is that we set a deadline of 1 week from today, so that each of us will review
Yes.
and provide comments to Chris, as well as our scores. Chris actually provided in this packet a first draft of the scoring rubric for these applications.
I haven't looked at the scoring thing in detail. Is that something we want to, the first time we do it, I think we vote and then we talk about each one of our understandings so that we're all kind of on the same page about the voting. It doesn't seem like it's that complicated, I guess, but I just...
And I want to change a word, not
Okay.
necessarily vote, but score. So we score, right, the application.
Yes.
And then can have,
So there could be different interpretations of this. So I think the first time it probably benefit us to discuss how we scored them.
okay, so let's take a look at this quickly then. So the scoring rubric, as it is in its current form, right? We have building eligibility. So going to building eligibility, is the building listed on the National Register as an individual resource or as part of a district? Or is it locally designated as a historic landmark or a historic overlay district? So
of the 4 that we've looked at, right, the church probably is probably not on a historic register and it hasn't been locally designated, but it is.
Shouldn't that be in the application?
Historic building.
correct. So it will be listed in the application. This is actually the scoring rubric. So yes, we should know whether or not we should award it 10 points, right? So that's the highest. Those are the highest priority buildings per this program, per the building eligibility. The building will also score 5 points if it is eligible for listing on the National Register or designation as a local landmark or inclusion in a local historic district. And then if it is not historically significant, then that is a 0.
So in the past, Chris has said that he has the capability to determine if a building is eligible for historic listing on it. I don't have that ability. So how do I vote on that? Or how do I score that, right? Because I don't know if it's 5 points or it's 0 points. Because I don't know if it's eligible to be listed.
That's a great point, Jeff. We'll have to take a look at that. So
That's-
we might need to revise first our scoring rubric. Project eligibility, we have 10 points. Does the project clearly meet the requirements outlined in the guidelines? Does the application require clarification or questions for the applicant? Does the project does not meet the requirements outlined in the grant guidelines? And then
The 3 that were reviewed are probably in the 5 point, right? That it needs clarification. Well, maybe not the church, but
potentially.
yes, the other 2.
And then project design. Does the project design not alter or change the exterior features of the historic property? Does the project design lead to slight changes or replacements, but without affecting the historic character? And does the project design alter or change the appearance of the building, of the historic character of the building? So how about we do this? Because I think, how about we collectively provide feedback first on the scoring rubric? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, and we can do this via email. Then
Are we allowed to do business by email?
we agree on,
Dave?
Are we allowed to-
Can we discuss?
We can
things?
ask questions.
Okay, we just can't decide anything
We
by
can't, you
email.
can't vote on them. Vote.
yeah, we're not voting though.
Okay. I have a friend who was on the Mill Creek School Board, and they were told they cannot discuss anything outside of a public meeting by email or a one-on-one conversation.
How would we get anything done?
It has to be done in public, right, so that there's no shenanigans going on. That's the concern, right?
I thought we were allowed to have one-on-one conversations, but we couldn't have a quorum.
Well, I think we need, if all we're doing is submitting questions,
You're not deliberating.
correct.
That's different.
So we can provide questions to Chris
And then
pertaining to
deliberate
this.
in public.
In public, yes.
Well, I hate to delay though, because if we do not provide feedback on this,
Right.
that means
2 months.
we will, yeah, it's 2 months before we vote on applications.
I understand, but I'm more concerned about setting a precedent, right? Because people are going to come back and say, you didn't do it for them, or you did it for me, and then they start thinking that we're playing favorites. So I think we need to discuss this. And we can submit our questions by email, but that would be my first question, right? The building eligibility. I can't say whether it's eligible for listing or not, so how do I score that,
No, that's a great point.
right? And the second one, project eligibility. So they submitted, there's questions, so I would score that as a 5 now because there's questions. But then when they resubmit, I could score it as 10, right? Once they clarify all the points that they have.
So I would also say, that so that very thing, the building eligibility, is a question that should be answered before the application comes to us.
It
The
should,
the fact that we are looking at these applications should tell us that the building is eligible for this grant program, which negates the first,
The whole reason for
the
that.
first criteria.
Because it's already been pre-approved.
Exactly.
So once it's,
Or it's
Once
been
Chris
determined, it's been
approved,
determined
then it's
eligible.
possible, right? So that the
Yes.
and Chris can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So once he does that, that takes the first step away from us. Is that correct?
It takes that first,
Yeah.
yes,
That's the
yes.
first scoring.
It takes the
ability.
guesswork away.
well, couldn't he be even on the application?
We can make that better.
Well, Chris gets the application right, he could then.
But
But the
Augment the-
applicant could
you can
confirm it by
augment the
checking a box
application.
and saying whether they're eligible or.
But are they capable of determining whether it's eligible or not? I mean,
That's why we have,
That's why Chris is here.
Chris would have to make that
They
call.
can ask the question.
Right.
I don't mind deferring that to Chris, do you? I think that's what that's his job.
it's, yes. So determining eligibility is actually part of his review.
I think that's perfect.
So too is project eligibility. It shouldn't be in front of us if the project isn't
Right.
meeting the guidelines of the grant program.
So they should have already jumped through hoops before it gets to us.
Correct,
We're not the hoop holder.
correct. We determine kind of the overall quality of the project
Yes,
and if it is meeting the intent of the grant program.
in general.
Mhm.
Yes.
Are you in agreement with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
So that really leaves us one scoring.
Well,
item on
per
that.
this draft.
Yeah. Did you have more? Didn't you, were you suggesting a draft, or did you write these?
I didn't write these. I provided Chris with 2 or 3 different scoring
Matrices.
yes, from other grant programs.
What other things would you like to see on here?
So, again, overall eligibility shouldn't necessarily be something that we're looking at. We should be looking at, does the project meet the goals of the grant program?
Okay.
Is the project description clear and concise? Right? Not an eligibility question. Do we actually understand
Mm-hmm.
the
What they're
scope,
asking
the
for.
scope of the project, yes,
Right.
what they are
What
asking
they're going to
funding
do
for.
with the money.
Okay.
Does the proposed budget does the proposed budget make sense for the project,
Yes.
right? Those, again, are not eligibility questions. They pertain more to the quality of the application and if it is meeting the goals of the grant program. Eligibility questions really should be addressed by Chris so that we're not reviewing applications that are ineligible for funding.
Right.
We only want to see those applications that have made it through that first review process.
Is it possible, just asking a question, let's say somebody asked for $15,000 and we see that it's like not exactly where we want to be, that we could augment and say, okay, we would give 7,500 as opposed to what they're asking. Could we augment it and change it, or is it an up and down vote? Do you know what I'm asking? Like, could we amend the amount if we felt that it wasn't a 10 out of 10, but it still had merit?
I don't know that we want to get that,
Picky?
yes,
I'm just asking.
my opinion only.
It's fine. I just wondered what the scope of our approval was. Are we just an up and down vote, or is there another additional wiggle room there?
Well,
Yeah.
going back to what Melinda said
It's fine.
before, we're saying, yes, it's historic preservation,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it meets we're not radically changing anything, all those things about, are we even supposed to get into cost?
Right, but if
We're
they're
just talking
saying,
about the appearance of the building, are we changing that?
but if somebody says, well, this is a $100,000 thing, and we can recognize that it's not a $100,000 improvement, that is kind of where we're supposed to be. You know, is it suitable? Is the amount asked germane to the project?
Well, if
And
it's
that is what we're supposed to do.
$100,000 and we're saying we're only going to give the $750, well, then their scope is way off, right? If it's really a $100,000 project, we're not able to make that judgment on a big project like that. Maybe you have
Let's say it's a $15,000
feel for that,
project.
but what I'm saying is for us to get in there and say, well, yeah, we think you shouldn't get $750, because that's all they're going to get. We're not going to give them $100,000.
I guess as far as budget, like if you see an application come in where the budget is $750 to paint a 3-story home, you're going to question that, right? Like,
Yes.
quality of the work, cost of the project, like there's something not right here.
Right, but if I have a quote from somebody that says here, or better yet, more than one quote that says, that's a little more reliable. And the way prices
It
are
is.
with material
It
and all
is.
the rest of that
Yes.
today, right, the price can be way
Yes.
higher than what we normally expect, but, yeah. So, should we even get into, I think to answer your question, Mark, I think we shouldn't get into saying, no, you can only have
I'm just-
10% over 5%.
I agree.
And I'm just
So-
bringing this up for a conversation. I don't have a solution, and I'm not leaning one way or another. I'm just saying, but basically it would mean that we're really just voting an up and down vote as opposed to a gray space of accountability for that. For the estimate.
Historical appropriateness, it's not us to get into the cost
That's
part of
fine.
it, right? I would say. Is it
Well,
historically
I think the
appropriate?
cost is part of the, if it's
What's the-
reasonable.
it-
I agree.
It has to
Yes.
be reasonable. If we get an application and it doesn't make sense to us, then you have to question it.
And then, but that would be part of the thing that Chris would do, would be, that originally, before it gets to us, would be, are the finances appropriate for the job?
No, that's something we look at,
That's something we look at.
Well, he would look at it, but we'd look at it also.
right?
Okay.
He is looking at solely eligibility. Is this application complete? Does it have, does the budget include the required 10% match? Is this a building that is either listed on the National Register, eligible for listing, eligible for local designation, right? Is it historic in any way, shape, or form? He's answering that question. We're looking at the quality of the project, how the project meets the guidelines, the goals of the grant program, as well as, yes, is the budget kind of reasonable or realistic for the scope of work that's proposed?
That's why I asked if we could adjust that, if we found it wasn't.
I don't think we want to do that, yeah.
Okay.
I think we could question it, and they would have to respond to it.
Yeah. We could
Yeah.
table it and get more information. And maybe they would reapply.
And the scoring, what is written here is 0 points, 5 points, and 10 points. And it probably doesn't matter now, but when we get to the end of the money, it may, I mean, is it limited to 0, 5, or 10? Can I say it's a 3 or it's a 9, or you know what I'm saying?
right.
When we get to the bottom of the money, there may be projects that are more worthy than other ones that would rate higher.
So per the guidelines, it's stated that we will review and either approve or deny applications on a rolling basis, which means if the grant kind of meets our criteria for funding and we approve it now, that funding is committed. So yes, absolutely, we may have applications come in 4 months from now that we may like better, but there's no funding left.
No, well,
Is that
I'm
what- is
saying
that what you're-
No, my question is, let's say 4 people came forward with projects today, and we only had $15,000 left to give out. How do we decide which one of those 4 we should give it to? And I'm saying, could we rate one instead of 0, 5, or 10? I could say, well, that one's a 6 and this one's an 8,
Yes.
and it's more worthy.
Yes.
So we're
And
not
that's why it
limited to
gets-
just
That's,
these numbers.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
We can create,
Yeah, at the
Because
end,
We can-
it's one total number at the end, so the higher the number, the better.
absolutely. And we may choose to fund only applications that score,
More than this number, right?
right,
Yeah, so
20 or,
there's
25 or
degrees.
above.
Because we might not want to wait till the money gets short, because that means we may have pre-spent the money to projects that otherwise, if they
Well,
came in later, we wouldn't have done.
A perfect,
And we can't do
a
that.
perfect example would be on the design project. It says 5 points. The project design slightly changes or affects the effect. So if you had one that really changed it, you would rate that lower than one that hardly changed the appearance of it, right? So it isn't a 5. One could be a 3 and the other one could be a 7. And so the one that is more historically accurate would get the money.
Yes. So since we are permitted to do one-on-one, I'm happy to work with Chris to revise this and,
Okay. Those are some of the,
okay.
as we go through this.
Are you okay with that?
Yes,
Okay.
That's fine.
but if we're going to have a criteria with a hierarchy,
We need it
we need
soon.
to apply that sooner rather than later, or we're going to run out of the money, and we have already funded
Well,
projects.
Before we do the first ones, I think we got
I
to.
agree. I think we should just make sure we spend the people's money
Wisely.
Absolutely. It's not our money.
Okay, are there any other questions and/or items to discuss? In which case, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fantastic. So we adjourned at 1:49.